Hello and welcome. Today I am thrilled and super excited to be interviewing the amazing Alina Hennessy. So Alina has released one of the most beautiful books I have read in a long time, The Healing Guide to Flower Essences. I am thrilled to have her here today with me. So Alina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley. It's an honor to be here.
So, flower essences are only part of your journey, and you really combine the beauty and I think soft, gentle energy that flower essences share with us, along with some creative expression in art. So, I'm wondering if you can tell everyone a little bit about your journey and how you got here today.
Sure. Well, I've been an artist and been drawing and painting for as long as I can remember. And I was also a tomboy nature girl. I grew up in Florida, and so I spent all the time outside in the parks and just riding bikes and fell in love with nature at an early age and just have always been drawn to painting botanicals and animals and other things. And so I was a commercial artist for a long time and doing well with that and just selling to galleries and catalogs and whatnot. And then I came a point in my journey where I wanted my art and my purpose in life to have more meaning and to be more connected to the mystery. And so I studied at this school here in Asheville about 12 years ago. And that's when I learned about herbalism and flower essences and energy healing. And I became a flower essence practitioner. And then a few years ago, my mom and I collaborated and made this oracle deck called Mysteries of Love Oracle about animal totems and flower essences. And the publisher found me and was like, "Do you want to do a book on flower essences?" And I'd already had 3 books out on painting. And I was like, at first I felt too busy to do it. But then she approached me again in the spring. I was like, "Sure, I'll do it." And so that's how this came about.
I love that. And we were just chatting before we started our interview, and you actually did the amazing piece of artwork that's behind you right now. And I love that you can kind of see a lot of those influences and elements coming through in your artwork. It's so expressive and it's really enjoyable. So we were also chatting a little bit about the artwork in the book, and you said it was a collaborative effort with someone quite special. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So my mom has been a fine artist and um, since she can remember, since college, really, since she was in university, she discovered. And then she raised 3 kids, and so she kind of put that to a side. But now, of course, she's like in pretty much retirement, so she has more time to draw and paint. So she moved up to Asheville a few years ago, and we collaborated on a few projects, first being the Oracle deck and then this book. So my mom painted I did everything else, the writing, the design behind the subject matter and like some of the like cute, like whimsical illustrations. And she did the main, like more classical painted illustrations of all the flowers. So it was another collaboration.
It's such a beautiful project, and it's so exciting to see it come to life. So let's dive into the book a little bit. Obviously, it's all about flower essences. This is something that I've been working with for just about a year now, and my background's actually in botany and horticulture, even though I'm like a crystal person now. So I love plants, and flower essences were something that really spoke to me. And I think, obviously they did the same for you with your journey into herbalism and flower essences and becoming a practitioner. Can you give those who may be watching or listening who might not have the background just a brief introduction and understanding of what flower essences are and why we might want to work with them?
Sure. I mean, they're amazing. I mean, I find that deep healing happens on the subtle realms, the energetic realms, and with our emotions. And that's what flower essences are about. So they're very gentle. There's not any side effects you might experience because it is on an energetic, emotional, spiritual level. So it's a homeopathic sort of, if you want to look at it in terms of put a name on it, it's more homeopathic sort of modality. And they're infused with water, sunlight, and some preservative like apple cider vinegar or brandy. And so they're through the sun or even the moonlight. And it's through that magical intention and the mystery which we can't our rational minds like can't fully maybe understand, so we have to more trust the experience with flowers. But I'll tell you, the more you work with them and the more you listen to them and observe them, you really begin to receive their messages. And so each flower has a doctrine of signature, so to speak, that addresses certain emotional imbalances or just things that we're dealing with on this earth plane that are very challenging. And the flowers are kind of this magical gift from the universe to offer us support.
So just like many listeners and viewers will be familiar with, crystal essences or gem elixirs, flower essences are basically imprinting that vibrational energy from the flower into the water itself.
Yes.
And then mostly we're taking these internally, but you do give a few other ways to work with them in your book, which I find fascinating. So what else can we do with flower essences other than just take the drops internally?
Yeah, so like anything, when you're working with the magic of plant spirit medicine, it is an energetic imprint. So you can put it into your lotion, your bath water. And I find that being intentional about it and creating a ritual around it, just they like that. They're like, because they're so like, they're into that honoring and that space and like that holding that because of their intricate beauty and mystery. And so if you can make a whole ritual around that, that can really, you can put it into your oils, you can put it however you'd like. And I personally really like to put it into my bath water as part of your bath time ritual.
Yeah, I have to ask as a side note, because you are an artist, have you ever incorporated the flower essences like physically into a painting? Like, have you ever tried painting with them?
I've done rose water and things like that, like spritzing, but no, and I would love to do that. I'll have to try that soon, because you're not the only person that's asked me that. And like, I think maybe you're the second person now that heard it twice. I'm like, okay, like I need to try that.
I was just kind of thinking about that. Like, I wonder how that would kind of guide the creative process if they were incorporated.
And I talk about taking like, iris or Indian paintbrush, ones that really inspire creativity before painting, before doing art or creating or crafting. So I imagine that would be amazing. Or if you had a certain intention around a piece, it would only help that creative process and help support you.
Beautiful. So in your book, you discuss the 38, I believe it is, original flower essences that were created by Dr. Bach. So for those who are like brand new to this, who was Dr. Bach and why were these 38 essences kind of selected by him?
So he's from England, and he was a traditional doctor. And he kept noticing, so this was around the 1920s or so in the UK. And he kept noticing that as a true healer would, that people were coming in uneasy, dis-ease, dis/ease, and that it was an emotional, psycho-spiritual condition that was causing these afflictions. And he was noticing that through his traditional allopathic medicine, it wasn't getting the core of it. And obviously he was a seeker. Obviously he was in tune with something else, empathic. And so he went out into the woods and spent some time alone in the woods. And he discovered that these flowers, these 38 original essences, this is really how the Western flower essences were discovered. They were used in other more mystical Eastern traditions, and even through other saints in Europe, in a more just simple way, like a less like, broadcasting it to the Western world and now the whole world. But he was the one that introduced it in terms of this more mass appeal. And he started treating his patients with these essences based on just meditating with them, studying them on their doctrine of signatures, on, like, for example, if you look at bleeding heart, the flower bleeding heart, it literally looks like a heart that's like bleeding down. And so it's for heart healing. It's for loss, for grief, for a breakup. Very effective, by the way. And so he would just notice that. And then he created these 38 and started treating his patients in a more homeopathic, holistic way. And the results were wonderful. And so he had a vision. He had like a message. He followed that. He wasn't sure what it was. just like we can with the magic of the universe. Like we get a pull, we're not sure exactly what we're going to find, but we know we have to do it because there's a pull there. And so that's how they were created. And the most popular of his is like the Rescue Remedy, which you can find in so many health food stores and even give it to your animals and your pets. But they're powerful. The ones I've worked with, a lot of different ones, and I will say that there's really something there about the ones that he worked with. They're some of my favorites.
So, Dr. Bach, I think we can say it would be safe to assume that those 38 essences are going to all be based on European plants because of where he lived. So, what's your opinion about, in the modern practice, the really recent modern practice of flower essence therapy, working with what we have around us, working with some non-traditional flower essences?
Well, you can work with, as long as the flower is safe and not poisonous, like you can work with any flowers around you. In fact, I recommend that. The flowers that grow around you in your yard, like sit with them, meditate with them. Those are very powerful. And you can look up what they mean, like through my book or, online, but you can also just ask the flower to tell you like what it's there for. And it will often, you'll find it's very similar to what maybe a message is. It's also a wonderful practice for trusting your intuition and yourself as your own healer. So absolutely work with the flowers around you and in your area. I mean, going on a hike, I've gone on hikes with people before, and we've spent all day making our own essences and just listening to them. And what happens when you do that is the whole experience is healing. It starts with that, going out on a hike. It starts with you visiting a garden or going outside in your land or wherever. I have land here, so I always say that, like, because I'm looking at the forest in front of me right now. But it's like the ones that are blooming around you usually can be very correspondent to the energy, and that's same with anything like the moon cycles and the astrology. So pay attention to them and always ask permission. If the flower is like, can I use you for this medicine? And sometimes they'll say no, but oftentimes they'll say yes because they're happy to provide that.
So do you think that what we may need actually does really shift seasonally with what is in bloom, like in our location? Obviously, things will bloom according to our climate, but also the specific weather. If you get an early warm spell, you might find that your tulips are up a little bit early, that kind of thing. Do you think that there are certain times a year when we need those medicines more than others? And that's why these flowers present themselves. I mean, obviously we can continue to work with an essence well outside of the time that the flower's blooming. But do you think that there's almost a stronger need for them during those times where the flowers are actively blooming?
I do. I mean, I think it's ultimately about being connected to the earth and the wisdom of the earth and the healing power of nature. So anything that it's an expression of that is going to be in alignment. And as well as you mentioned, like following your own intuition. So for me, I just went through a big transition with the loss of my pet, and I know exactly which essences work for me. I've been so busy, so I bought them and had them shipped in, like, because I have a relationship with them. And so the relationship is, I think, twofold: the ones around you and then the ones that you experiment with, and you'll find an allyship with certain plants and flowers. And so everyone is going to be unique with that way. Like, for like if you're going through a grief process, like there are many for grief, but there's might be one that's going to be really just energetically imprint you in the right way. And that's the mystery. But always making your own is going to be very healing, because it's like that, it's going to start the process as soon as you start making them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I have to say, Alina, one of the things that I love about this book, and again, the name of Alina's book is The Healing Guide to Flower Essences: How to Use Gaia's Magic and Medicine for Wellness, Transformation, and Emotional Balance. And you can find it literally everywhere books are sold. But what I love about this is you've made it so simple. You have a great introduction to flower essences. as well as how to prepare your own. So if you're looking for that step-by-step, definitely check out Alina's book. But then you've broken the essences down. You've kind of grouped them into some of their core purposes,
Yeah.
and you have them for things like anxiety, for boundaries, for grounding and healing, for clairvoyance. So many things that I think many of us are looking to connect with or enhance in our lives. And just like we work with crystals, this is another layer of this energetic vibrational medicine that we can incorporate. How did you decide that that's how you wanted to kind of categorize this reference section to the different essences?
Well, there are just so many essences, like there are hundreds of them, and so many different wonderful makers create them. And so I just felt like these themes of what we are seeking to heal as a collective right now, like anxiety, like boundaries, like clairvoyance, it just came to me to organize them in that way. And also each one has a unique sort of energetic expression of healing in that category. Let's say if it's for grounding, there might be one that's like more about just slowing down and meditating and getting in the present moment. And other one might be really healing more of a traumatic experience, but it's still going to be about balancing and grounding. So it just sort of came to me that they needed an organization, and that these are the themes that are really alive and important for everyone right now.
So perfect. And if you want to learn more about Alina, you can visit her website at alinahennessy.com. And you can also find her on Instagram at Alina Hennessy. So Alina, can you just tell everyone a little bit more about how they can stay connected with you and find out everything about what you have coming up in terms of books, blogs, online courses, retreats?
Thank you. Yeah. So if you sign up for my newsletter, my website, you can get the updates. But I have my online course, A Year of Painting, which is like my most popular one. People love to join that, and that's open for registration now. And that's like, we start off the new year with like intentional painting, and it's just a really supportive international group. And then at some point, I've done international retreats all over. That's taken a pause due to this year, but I do have workshops here on my land, and then hopefully the international retreats will be opening back up, and I'll do that more selectively because I am just loving being at home right now and working at home. And yeah, just so stay connected with me there and through Instagram, and you'll find me all this stuff on my website.
Amazing. And again, that's alinahennessy.com. Alina, thank you so much for coming on the show today, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your sweet spirit.
Oh, Ashley, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.